Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our next episode of Cosmic Coffee. Thank you for joining us here on a beautiful Thursday morning here on Mars Hill. I'm Jeff Hall, an astronomer and the director of the Observatory, and joining me this morning is our historian, Kevin Schindler. Kevin was on Cosmic Coffee a couple of weeks ago as we were talking about the Clark telescope. So first of all, we're going to give a quick shout out to Wicked AZ Coffee. As we do, we try to feature a different coffee shop each week and encourage folks to support our local businesses as things get back into gear. So this morning, we're going to do another episode as kind of a look behind the scenes of one of our facilities. If you go back on our YouTube channel, you'll see one where I gave kind of a walk around and behind the scenes look of the Lowell Discovery Telescope. This morning, we're going to look behind the scenes at one of our most historic structures here on Mars Hill, the Slipher Building, which is actually where I'm sitting right now in my office. And what we're going to do is very similar to what I did at LDT. We're going to pass it over to Kevin, and he's going to give you a walking tour around the building. He's going to stop in here a little bit later, at which point things might get a little surreal, but we'll see how it all goes. So Kevin, let's get started and show people what's going on with this historic structure here.
Thanks, Jeff. Great to be on Cosmic Coffee, and we appreciate all of our guests who are taking part in our live stream presentations. If you go to Lowell Observatory, kind of the center of the whole campus is this big round building that we call the rotunda, and it's part of the overall Slipher Building that has wings on the west side and east side. It's really a distinct, beautiful building. And, most visitors at some point or another have seen inside the rotunda, which is our museum and has different historic displays in it. Upstairs, there's a area with books that we can't go up there very often, but it has books because it's the old library. So that's something that most guests are familiar with, but there's the rest of the building. It's like, you come here and you want to know what's happening on the other side of the wall. And so we're going to kind of look at that today. We're going to take a tour of the building. I'm actually on the main floor, just not too far from where you are, Jeff. Yeah. I'm not sure if we're hearing each other echo or not.
No, this is a little weird because I'm watching you on the stream and I can hear you talking down the hall. So,
So I've got two things I'm going to take with me along on the tour. I've got a flashlight. For a couple places we go. And I also have a mask that I'm going to put on because we do have a couple folks working today. So in case we come in contact with them. So let me just try to put this on without, I know what I'll do. I'm going to turn this around so you're not seeing me anymore bumbling with this. And let's see here. And so here's the reading room of the Slipher Building. This is a great place to start. If I turn around all the way, these are the doors from the rotunda from where I just came out. And right above is a picture of our founder, Percival Lowell. Along the left wall are the directors of Lowell Observatory through the years, ending with Jeff. And that picture is going to be the last one for probably another 40 years or so. And then if we go on this side, the right side, these are the trustees. Lowell has an unusual organizational setup in which we have a sole trustee that sort of kind of owns the place, as it were, and manages from the top level. And then the director, which is Jeff, of course, manages day-to-day operations. And so this is a great place to start. The old reading room. It's kind of hard to see out the window, but you see a lot of Gamble Oaks, and behind those are the San Francisco peaks. So we're going to go upstairs, start at the top and go to the bottom. There's going to be some creaking. There's going to be some things that folks may have seen before. We're going to look at some offices, some current astronomer offices and such. So I'm going to go down this hallway, and I'm looking at Jeff's office right now. We're going to take a right. And this building or a basement. And Jeff, I think we have a picture of that. If you can pop that up while I'm walking. So I'm now on what would have been the roof of the original building when it was finished in 1916. But I'm now going up to the attic, which was added in 1923. because that original building was flat roofed, and in the wintertime, snow piled up and that was no good. So I'm now up in the attic, and boy, this is an attic like we all have in our house. It's full of old stuff. There's clothes, there's books, there's these old print devices here. There's a little bit of everything up here. I'm going to walk down this way a little bit.
Yep,
and there's this room
around here
that cuts in. And we have in here a camera that's always looking at the peaks. And you can kind of see out that window. So that's one of the TV stations in Phoenix. You can look at Lowell Observatory's live feed at any time. Down here, we have scads of clothes for our public program and a lot of other stuff stored. I think one of the interesting things up here is this equipment. Down to the right here, this is a telescope that was used on the San Francisco peaks back in the 1920s and 30s and early 40s, when there was a toll road that went up to the peaks, the Weatherford Road as we nickname it today. And this telescope was up there. This is kind of the same kind of mount that the Pluto Discovery Telescope has. And there's some other equipment here, a lot of old camera things, devices for taking pictures and such. It's amazing how far we've come in the digital age. You have a little chip and a computer, but not this room-sized equipment as it was in some cases.
So Kevin, with that telescope on the Weatherford Trail, they were just experimenting with a very high elevation site to see how well it worked, right?
Right. One of the first things that VM Slipher had done, VM Slipher was one of the early astronomers here. Percival Lowell had him studying Mars and looking for water vapor in support of Lowell's ideas that there might be life there. And so Slipher wanted to minimize the impact of Earth's atmosphere. So the higher the elevation, the less impact. And so they originally dragged the telescope up for that. And then there was Cornell had a meteor observing station there at one time. It was at one time the highest observing station in the world at something like 11,500 feet. And in fact, you can hike up there today. You take the Weatherford Trail up to the saddle, and then you go up the side of the peak, Schultz Peak, and there's still the remains of the building. And in fact, there's an old tree stump hacked off at a 35-degree angle where they mounted the telescope. And that's now a corner of a little structure up there. So this telescope is a neat remnant of that back then. I'm going to turn around here, and this is kind of an interesting view. There's these wooden steps that go up to a little window. It looks outside, and there's the top of the rotunda. So we can see how high we are. And we're going to be able to get a good idea of the rotunda, that big dome. If we walk back this way, I'm going to take different stairs back down. This little, I don't know, I'm not sure how many staff know about these stairs, but I'm getting close to, well, let me step back. Here's the original rotunda. I mean, I'm standing right next to it. So when it was originally built, where I'm standing wasn't here. This story wasn't here. But somewhere along the way, part of the sheet was cut. So you can see how thick. This is just this metal sheet that's on top of the rotunda. Then you have these panels of wood. If I turn the flashlight on, then you can see the interior of the rotunda building itself. I'm seeing it from the outside. So it's kind of neat to see, you see the building from the outside, but you start delving into the nooks and crannies, you can see how this was put together. And that's just wire covered with some sort of cement type thing. So let's go down these stairs. And this is kind of an interesting little spot. Again, I'm not sure how many staff even know about this. I feel like I'm on the old Let's Make a Deal program, door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3.
Yeah, will you ever be seen again?
Well, some would, hope for one to answer the other. If one of these doors goes to the old apartment where Clyde Tombaugh lived, another door goes into hallway, there's actually another option. If we look below where my feet are, there's this board. These steps continue down, but then they just stop. The original building, this was another stairwell that went to the attic, but back, gosh, in the 1980s or so, this was sealed off. And I think this is another stairwell most staff don't know about because it no longer goes anywhere. We'll look at where that comes out a little bit later on. So let's go back here where we have a bunch of, our IT folks have a bunch of stuff stacked here. Door number 3 opens up into one of our most beautiful meeting rooms up here. The second story, gosh, what do we call it? The SB meeting room, Slipher Building meeting room. And this, has remnants of past technology. A chalkboard which is still used today.
It's still used. Yep.
A great meeting room. I'm going to go down the hallway. When I came up earlier, these are the steps I'd come up, and here's the door. But if I go down the hallway here, Dr. Gerard Van Bell, this is his office right here. And we have got some postdocs and pre-docs. Lowell has a really great tradition of bringing in students to help do research and help them become scientists as part of the learning process. And so we have office space for our students. Dr. Deidre Hunter, who studies dwarf galaxies. Will Grundy, Pluto expert, a member of the New Horizons team. Dave Sawyer, who is managing our development of our expansion of our visitor program. And we're going to continue doing these video live streams, but boy, what's it going to look like when this expansion really kicks in a couple of years and we have this new facility up here? It's going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting.
Let me go back here, back into the meeting room, because the view out here is just really pretty breathtaking. I mean, this is like a picture. It's a picture out the picture window. And I think the light is right where you can see the San Francisco peaks in the background. I see some wasps flying around right outside there. And if we look right down, right below me, there's this kind of a flat building that juts out from the main building. That was the old coal bin. When this was built in 1916, they shoveled coal into the furnace to heat it. And that's where they shoveled that coal into. We're going to go inside of that later and probably bat away some cobwebs because it's pretty creepy down there.
Yep, it is.
And so now we're heading down the west side of the second story of the building. I like this office because Jim Elliott, who was an MIT researcher for years, had strong ties to Lowell, and he would come out here for summers and also lead summer camps with students. And this was his office. Today, this is my office, so that's, this is one office that's open because I'm here. So I don't know, this is kind of what I don't know if they all look like this, but kind of the size and everything. And this office is also kind of interesting because there are several of them up here on this end of the floor. And these originally were bedrooms for the single scientists that were here. One of these was Clyde Tombaugh's. We're not sure if it was this one or another one. But one of these was originally his bedroom when he stayed here. And then we go down a little bit further, and there's an apartment that we call the Tombaugh apartment, because we're not sure exactly which one of these heat rooms Clyde lived in when he was here and when he discovered Pluto. But this particular room has been preserved as an apartment, and visiting scientists that come today stay here. So we'll take a look at what that looks like.
Yeah, it's nice quarters.
Yeah, this is, you could do worse. And this table, Bill Putnam, our former trustee, built. And then we go back into the little peek at the bedroom here, and then it goes back into the bathroom. Yep. So, this building, I think, really captures how Lowell was, and I think still is for today. It's not only a place where people work, but it's a place where people live. And Jeff, you're a great example of this.
Yeah.
How long have you lived up on here on the hill?
Yeah, we there's a number of staff residences up here. So I'm about a quarter mile from home, I guess, maybe a little less. We moved up here November of 2001.
So so that continued a long tradition of staff not just working here but living here. So this really is home.
It is
for so many people, and even if you don't live up here, I think Lowell has that homey feel. We have that apartment there, but I think another homey touch is compliments of Dr. Lisa Prado, one of our astronomers, who brought this ping pong table up here into this nice screened-in porch.
Yep.
And again, this is part of Lowell. We have a volleyball court up elsewhere. We have this ping pong table. It's just this real family feel here, and it feels like home. And I think that makes it, a place where people just love to work. It's such a welcoming environment. It's not sterile walls and such. We went to the attic. We're now on the second floor. We're going to go back down to the main floor, but we're going to take some outside stairs. And partly because I wanted to share this miserable view again of the peaks with some Gamble oak and some of the ponderosa pine growing in the foreground. Again, here from this angle, there is the top of the coal bin, that flat building. And just beyond is one of the houses up here. For years, John Spencer lived there, who is now working in Colorado at the Southwest Research Institute. Brian Skiff, our longtime sky god. I don't know, is that a good title for him? He lives there now.
Yeah, he's forgotten more about the sky than I'm ever probably going to know.
And then, this is great because, again, this is a view where we see, this old house, the decades.
Now, Kevin, since you're outside, your video's frozen. So I think your Wi-Fi signal is getting a little weaker.
That's the peak where we had the field station, that telescope was up there. And so,
yeah, Kevin, you've dropped out and your video's frozen, so might want to come back inside. Okay, so we're going to wait a minute for Kevin to get downstairs. I had closed my office door. Yep, we've totally lost him. I'd closed my office door so that his voice wouldn't interfere with mine. So I'm going to go open it and wait for him to come back online.
Okay. We lost it for a second there, I think, but I think we're good. I went outside. So we just entered the building, and this office is particularly interesting. There's a sign above it. This office was occupied from 1929 through 1940 by Clyde Tombaugh. This is where Clyde's office was when he discovered Pluto. So he was living upstairs. His office was right here. His entire life was within one floor of this building. And so I think nobody's occupying the office right now. This certainly isn't what it looked like when he was here, but this is inside Clyde's office. So we can imagine, if we go inside here for a second, we imagine February 18th, 1930, Clyde Tombaugh, woke up upstairs, walked downtown, had breakfast, came back up, and did a little paperwork in his office here. And then he went in the office right next door. And today, some of our tech guys, Frank Cornelius and Jeff Gehring, are in here. This is the office where the blink comparator was set up. And so about 4 o'clock in the afternoon on February 18th, 1930, we can imagine Clyde Tombaugh sitting here. He's blinking on the blink comparator and suddenly stops. He thinks he has a planet suspect. So after it's off for, he looks at it for a little bit. He calls over across the hallway to the end office here. And that was Carl Lamplin's office, one of the astronomers here. I said, Dr. Lamplin, come and look at this. I think I've got something here. Lamplin comes over. Sure enough, they think this, so now he's going to go and talk to the director. And so he comes out of the office, walks past offices today. Nick Moskovitz, who is our meteor expert, among other things, is here. This office nobody was in here. This is well before Dr. Lisa Prado was here. And in fact, this office at one time is where Robert Burnham worked and where he wrote Burnham's Celestial Handbook. So Clyde Tombaugh is walking past this little room, and this is where those stairs to nowhere used to come down. He walked past where the rotunda is on the right. You can just imagine what this 24-year-old is thinking, going past what today is Kyler Kuhn's office, in charge of instrumentation, Michael West, our deputy director for science, Amanda Bosch and Steve Levine, and finally gets to the end office and walks in and says, "Dr. Slipher, I think I found your planet X."
Hi there, Kevin. This is here. I'm gonna mask up since you're in the same office. This is where it's getting a little weird. This is pretty surreal. So you're watching me, watching the street, watching Kevin. So yeah, this is the director's office. This is where Clyde walked in, and I told Dr. Slipher I think I found my X. And it's hard to recount that story without getting a certain number of goosebumps. It indicates the history that's going on here. So yeah, this is the southeast end of the first floor of the building, and there we are.
Thanks, Jeff. And we can imagine VM Slipher's office. Bob Miller is director here for a long time. All of our directors through the years, this has been our office.
That's right.
I'm going to turn around and we can see where, if I back up just a little bit, this office at Steve Levine's and Amanda Bosch, that was E.C. Slipher's office. And we have great pictures of his office piled with papers. And over here on the left, Dr. Phil Massey, one of our astronomers here today. Before Phil, for a long time, Mark Bowie had an office here. And Mark Bowie is another Pluto expert that is now working at the Southwest Research Institute. So let's go down to our last floor here, the bowels of the observatory, as it were. And the bottom floor has several offices in it. Georgy Mandashev, one of our instrument and software guys, is I think on a walk right now, but he's working. But you notice most of these offices are quiet today because most staff are still working at home.
Yep.
And so let me turn around this way and look down this hallway. We're gonna end in this pretty soon here, but I want to show a couple of creepy things, and then we'll end in perhaps the coolest room here.
Yep. No shortage of creepy things to look at.
We'll walk through here, and this is an old area that has an old shower in here. I mean, this is like a lot of these old industrial feeling buildings, at least in the basement. But we're going to go down to where that coal bin was. So let's get the light on here. So this is now where the furnace is, not the one that Clyde Tombaugh stoked with coal. But now we're going to go into that coal bin. There's no lighting in here. And this is like, I don't know.
I think as we get into the coal bin, the Wi-Fi signal is getting a little weaker again. Yep, these are old, kind of thick walls around here, and
there's, of course, any good basement has several old water tanks in it that are no longer used. Toward the back here, here's some more scientific instruments and pieces of telescope. And then, let me stop over here. You got some of these great old copper fire extinguishers in here. So this room has just a little bit of everything. And if we look up, there's one of the doors in the roof where they shoveled the coal in, and then carried it out the door to the furnace there. So I have managed, even though I was in here earlier, I still have a big cobweb on my ear that I'm going to wipe off, because that's just how it is in this kind of building. So let me walk back out this way. I'd like to know what kind of vermin and spiders live in here, but we're not going to find out right now.
No, they're probably riding out on you.
Yeah, that's right. Let's go back up this way. we're going to end by looking at two vaults that are here. One is at the end of the hallway, past some other offices. Here's some of our night operations team that they have an office even below ground. You have a pretty nice view out here. And the San Francisco peaks are peeking through those trees there. So here's the night ops office back to the other end. And we're going to go in this big old bank vault that was brought here as part of the original building. And this is taped closed, I think, so nobody can lock it because we probably lost the combination a long time ago. And then we have another interior door. I'll turn the light on. And so for years, this was where valuable stuff was stored. These walls are concrete. This place is earthquake proof down here, I think. It's pretty thick. And our archives team, led by Lauren Amundsen, who has a lot of volunteers, they're working in here, going through all these glass plates. This is a neat look at just some of the photographic glass plates we have. The old way of taking pictures. And each one of these envelopes contains a piece of glass in which they captured an image of astronomical images. There's some scenes from the Grand Canyon. There's a little bit of everything here, mostly pictures of the planets and stars and such. And so they're slowly going through this and curating this to where it'll all eventually go into our Putnam Collection Center. And then this will be a staff lounge down here or something like that, I'm not sure. So let's go back down this way.
Hey, Kevin, we've got
one more stop.
Got a question that came in on the feed that I'd like to ask you.
Sure.
Yeah, so Bob Filler, hello, Bob.
Hi, Bob.
If there have been any Mars Hill structures damaged by any fires that have come through Flagstaff over the years?
We've had minimal damage up here. I think that the only one that I can think of that we actually lost a building was E.C. Slipher's house. And E.C. Slipher's house was along a roadway that used to go actually where your house, Jeff, is, kind of down from there. It's a dirt path now. But that was the roadway up until 1938. And there was a house there that E.C. Slipher lived in, and that house burned down. It wasn't a forest fire. It was cinders from the fireplace that were put outside unsafely, and it burned the house down. But forest fires, we certainly had fires, and even in our time, we've had some major fires here. But maybe you can talk about this, Jeff, just the efforts of the firefighting crews that have been up here.
Yeah, the closest call I can remember was in 2006, June 2006. There was a tire blowout on the interstate about 5 miles directly upwind of here, and it was a windy day, and it took off and torched about 300 acres. And we evacuated Mars Hill, and fortunately there were air tankers in the air on their way to another fire, and they got diverted because this was right on the urban interface with Flagstaff. Fortunately, over the years, the Forest Service, fire department have done quite a bit of treatment and quite a bit of thinning in the areas upwind of us, and that's really lowered the risk. But it is, everywhere, wherever you live, you have a risk of some sort of disaster or another, and we live with the fire risk. That's really the major concern around here.
And I remember that fire very well too, Jeff. And I called Gretchen at home, and she was packing up pictures and all the personals.
Oh yeah, I remember. We loaded up the car. Actually, my wife's parents were visiting at the time, so we loaded up the car, and we and the 2 parents and 3 boys all went out and had a huge dinner at the Outback. I was figuring, if you're going to get burned out, you may as well do it on a full stomach, right?
Well, that does bring up, I mentioned about this building feeling like it's earthquake proof. We have had earthquakes here in Flagstaff. Nothing like you have maybe in California, but one of our security cameras in the Putnam Collection Center recorded one a few years back, and it was neat to look back at the footage and see, the big red, Percival Lowell's car that's on display, shaking just a little bit during that event.
And that was surreal. That was at about 11 in the evening. And
yeah.
I was sitting on the sofa wrapping up email or something, and there was just this rattle, and then my whole residence just went like that, and everything was kind of shaking. And then of course Twitter went berserk, and yeah, that was quite something. I mean, it was about a 5.2, and I think the most amusing thing was, everybody in Flagstaff was tweeting like crazy, and then the people from California started chiming in. It's like, guys, it was a 5, chill,
That's no earthquake.
Yeah.
Well, let me get back here. We'll go into our final room here. This is it's called the cereal room. Not what you eat, but we have old publications in here. This for years was kind of the backup area for our library, because we didn't have enough space in the library. The library originally was in Percival Lowell's, house that he lived in up here. Then it was in the rotunda in this building, which is directly above where I'm standing. The floor here, that's the floor of that room. But there wasn't enough space, and so they added all these bookshelves down here. I mean, we have a lot of foreign journals and other publications that aren't used as much anymore. But in recent years, this has also turned into a preparation area for our archives team. In front of us here is a device built in-house to flatten maps and drawings. It's essentially a humidifier. You put a rolled up map inside, put a piece of plastic over or glass, and then it pumps in air and just a little bit of water, enough to where the map flattens out, and when it dries, it stays flat. And so this is a great prep area. And I'm going to go in reverse order here a little bit, because I want to show the last room, to me, is the coolest one here.
Yeah.
But we have something like 35 to 40,000 old glass plates here. And, you think about glass, over time, it's going to degrade, and the emulsion will flake off and such. And so we're starting a project now. We've got some money to start digitizing these old plates to where, for instance, in New Horizons, when New Horizons was the mission, the spacecraft was flying out to the planet, Mark Bowie came to Lowell and tracked down several of the old images of Pluto that Carl Lamplin had gotten right after Pluto's discovery. And he used those to refine the position of Pluto, which helped refine the orbit of New Horizons. But he had to get these old plates and have them scanned, and that was not real practical. Now we have money to scan these plates, which is going to make it available to anybody. You don't even have to come here. You don't have to get the plates. They'll be scanned. And what's, I think, great about it is Stephen Levine, who's kind of masterminding this with Lauren Amundsen. He's planning on scanning, the plate and the envelope. And the plates have a lot of little notes on them that observers made while they were examining them. They'll scan them with the notes and then remove those notes so they can scan what the plate originally captured. And so you have a record of both. And that's going to be just such an incredible opportunity to have all those scanned for researchers around the world, really. And if we walk back here, Stephen is starting to dabble with this. This is where the station is going to be, where they're going to be scanning these things. So yeah, this room has changed a lot over the last few years. A lot of the books have been processed out of here. We go back this way a little bit. Lots of old map cases. These ones up here, we have Ralph Nye drawings of different telescopes. We have a lot of the old ACIC maps in here, and blueprints of buildings going back to the Clark telescope. So it's really quite a nice collection. And then the last room we'll go into is the plate vault. And, to me, there's just a twinge of sadness that in 5 to 10 years, when all of our plates are scanned, we're not going to go into this impressive looking room, because the plates are going to be in the climate controlled places of the Putnam Collection Center, and it probably won't look quite as dramatic. But there's something about walking into a room like this and turn the light on, and we can see there's a lot of, all those white things are envelopes with plates in. But then we look over on this side, and here's this long stack of them. I said there are 35 to 40,000 plates here. A lot of them are in this room. All these rows of white plates are ones that were taken by Clyde Tombaugh and then later astronomers. So the top 2 rows here were all done by Clyde Tombaugh. Years after he left, scientists here rephotographed the sky, just like Clyde had done, for a proper motion survey to compare how the sky changed over time. And that's what all these plates at the bottom are. So this is just an incredible collection of the night sky. There aren't a lot of these surveys like this around. And so these capture what the sky looked like way back when. So, with computer modeling, you can do a lot on, what was up in the night sky and everything, but that doesn't account for ephemeral things, a supernova or stuff like that maybe hasn't been observed. This captures the night sky. It's kind of a snapshot of what the night sky looks like.
Yep, it's going to be wonderful to get the digitization project going and make these accessible. There's a very historic plate in there too.
Turns out there is. Well, there's a lot of them actually.
Well, yeah.
But I think the one you're hinting at is not these. These are some of the earliest plates for the Planet X search. The search for a 9th planet that started in 1905. Percival Lowell and his team tried different telescopes, different plate sizes. He passed away in 1916, but then in the late 20s, when the observatory recommenced the search, they acquired the 13-inch telescope we know as the Pluto Discovery Telescope, or technically the Abbott Lawrence Lowell Telescope. And then they decided to use 14 by 17-inch glass plates. And in 1930, when Clyde Tombaugh was in the early stages of photographing the sky, here's one of the plates he took. I'm not going to take it out all the way because if anything happens, you'll be coming down here with a pink slip, and so I'm not going to do that. But we get an idea. This is one of the discovery plates that Clyde Tombaugh used. The other one is on display at the Air and Space Museum at the Smithsonian in Washington. And so you can see this is January 29th, 1930. And this is just one of, rows and rows of plates up here. But when I talk about important history, important scientific and cultural history, this room has it, especially, that plate. And so down the road, as we develop our new visitor experience, one of the ideas is maybe to have that plate on display in some capacity, or copy of it, some way to show guests just how Clyde Tombaugh discovered Pluto here and how we continue to learn about Pluto today. So I think this is a good room to end in because it's got a feel to it. It's like so much of Lowell Observatory. It's not just seeing a row of plates. You can feel the presence of the people who spent their careers capturing this. And then this stuff is still used today. Long after they passed away, these pictures they took are still useful today. So I think it's, it's a really great tribute. And I think captures the spirit of this building and Lowell Observatory in general. The spirit of discovery and sharing that and exciting people with that thrill. So I think I'll stop there. I'm not sure how we are in time, but I think we're pretty good there.
We're doing fine. We've got time for one or two questions. There are a couple of questions on the feed. Let's see. Jasmine Magnari asked about a solar panel. Is there a solar panel somewhere in the building, and has it collected dust?
We have solar panels on top of the current visitor center, and we had some along the Pluto Walk several years ago that gathered some power. I'm not sure that we have any solar panels associated with the building. I do know that back in the old days, one room we didn't go into, it, which is now stuffed with old instruments, was part of a solar observing effort they had here. And that's not too far below your feet, probably.
Yeah, right. I think it's directly. Yeah, right.
And that's a neat, maybe you can touch on Jeff, that a little bit, Jeff. That was a solar project that started years ago, but that has continued in modern times.
Well, yeah, I mean, solar research here at Lowell goes back 70 years, really starting in the 1950s with early efforts to measure the variability of the sun by observing changes in the brightness of Uranus and Neptune, which is they're kind of star-like and shine by reflected sunlight. That's a really, really difficult thing to do because the planets themselves change, and so that, yeah, those sorts of long-term projects have continued right through the present day, and that's actually what brought me to Lowell in 1992 was the Solar Stellar Cycles project. You can learn a little bit about that on a previous episode of Meet an Astronomer that I did several weeks ago. Now here's a fun question from room 38 science lab, and I'm sure you can answer this one, Kevin. They want to know, an old building like this has creaks and groans, and are there any fun, spooky stories the staff have passed along over the years?
Well, that was a great feed. Thanks for that. Because when we were up in the attic, walking around, it's pretty creepy up there. Gosh, a Sky and Telescope article years ago. I can't remember, it was the 1970s or 80s maybe. And there was a little blurb about somebody hearing Percival Lowell walking his dog up in the attic. I never knew Percival Lowell had a dog up here, although he might have. But still, I like the story. And I mean, I certainly, anytime you go to Lowell Observatory, I don't care what time you go up here, somebody's working. I can't think, I've been here at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. There's always somebody here, either remotely observing or Brian Skiff, works, late into the night. So I've been here some pretty weird hours, and, I've been in these buildings at night, and it can be a little creepy because, an old building groans a lot and, is settling, and, we don't have any ghost story besides Percival Lowell walking his dog here, but other places around the observatory, like at the mausoleum, has some really great stories. So, it's, an old place like this, you just get that feeling that it's funny. Daytime and light, you may hear noises, but at nighttime when you're all alone and it's quiet in here, it can be just a little bit creepy.
It can be a little bit lonely, a little bit creepy late at night when.
Yeah.
So Kevin, if you could go back upstairs to the reading room, there's a request to see that stained glass window we've got there.
Okay. Let me turn around so we can.
Yep.
Something more pleasant.
We can wrap by showing folks the stained glass window, and then maybe at the very end, you just open the door and people let folks see inside the rotunda. Right before the show started, we were having a little trouble with the Wi-Fi connection in there. So if Kevin drops out, you'll know why, but we'll give you a quick look because that rotunda is a pretty historic, a beautiful site.
Okay. So let's go. I believe what we're talking about is this.
Yeah.
Right here. And this came from Andy Odell. And Andy Odell was a longtime astronomer. He taught at Northern Arizona University. He volunteered here at Lowell for years. And I think it was also worked out with some Lowell staff here on projects. He passed away last year. And one of the things that came to us from him was this beautiful stained glass that captures the night sky.
All right. And then just maybe a quick peek into the rotunda because the Saturn lamp is really cool. Yeah.
If I notice the signal going, I'll step back. But yeah, this is the view from the other side of the door. And yeah, you mentioned the Saturn light. That this was built in 1916 as part of the main building. This light came a few years later after World War I had ended. And it was designed to look like Saturn. And you see that motif around the outside of the rotunda has the ring. The Percival Lowell's mausoleum has kind of a Saturn look with its ring to it. So this is definitely a distinctive part of this room, as is these gorgeous staircases that were built by a woodworker. And we also have some art in here by local ceramic artist Paula Rice, a great friend of Lowell Observatory. And
Yep.
and then we have displays. I'll just keep, it looks like the signal's still good. The blink comparator, the device that Clyde Tombaugh used to discover Pluto in 1930. This was on display at the Smithsonian for the last 5 years, and then we just got it back, months ago. So that's on display now.
Mhm.
We have more information about Pluto, about the instruments that were built up here. Over on this side, probably definitely one of the most important discoveries ever made here was VM Slipher's detection of the expanding universe. And we've got some displays on this. And then here's, again, the stairwell on this side that goes up, and you have that little bit up there.
Yep.
So we started out with what's unfamiliar will end in a place that this is a place that most of us have seen a lot of times. I got married in here, so it has special meaning for me. And a lot, there's just been so many great programs through the years. I like the setup right now because we're using this as a temporary meeting room as we're closed to the public. And so we have the socially distanced chairs for our staff to have meetings in here.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Kevin. Your signal's pretty good. You were breaking up a little bit, but I think that beautiful rotunda is a good place to wrap up for the morning. I don't see any further questions, or they've been answered on the YouTube feed. So thanks everyone for joining us. We will periodically we'll take you around behind the scenes of some other parts of this really beautiful and historic campus. As Kevin said earlier, I think for anyone who's been here for any length of time, it's not just a place where you work. It really does feels like home, and it's good to be here, and we'll look forward to welcoming as many of you as possible back here as soon as it's safe to do so. So until then, stay well, stay healthy as always, and until next time, goodbye from all of us here on Mars Hill.